So right now in the UFC there are a lot of champions with entertaining fighting styles, and in this video I decided to rank every single current UFC champion based on how entertaining their fighting style is. So let's get right into it by starting off with number 8. Belal Muhammad. I know, very surprising. I know a lot of y'all actually expected this guy to be at number 1. Absolutely destroyed Leon Edwards, but all jokes aside, he is genuinely a skill fighter. The way he beat Edwards was very impressive. He had a very good game plan in that fight. However, he's also very boring inside the octagon. The concept Belal exists for a reason. If you fight Belal, you're gonna get Belal'd. Belal is a slow wrestler with decent boxing, but he does have pillow hands. He also has a very low finishing rate. I think he has like 6 finishes out of 27 fights, and overall he's just boring. He literally just lays on his opponents and Belal's them. But I will say that it's very funny that this guy somehow became champion. Now at number 7 we have Alexander Pantoja, and this guy is actually quite an entertaining fighter. He's not super powerful, but he keeps a very high pace. He rushes in throwing punches and goes for takedowns. But unlike Belal, he doesn't Belal his opponents. He actually looks for submissions on the ground, and he actually has a pretty good amount of submissions on his record. He has 10 submission wins, 8 wins by knockout, and 11 of those 18 finishes came in the first round. In my opinion, Pantoja is undoubtedly a very entertaining fighter, but he's not as entertaining as the champions above him. So at number 6 we have John Jones. I know a lot of people are gonna be like, how can you put the GOAT of the sport down here? Man, I don't care if he's the GOAT or not, the guy's had some unimpressive performances recently in his career. I mean, before finishing Cyril Gane, the guy had 3 decision wins in a row, and 2 of them were very controversial, and 1 of them was a clear robbery. Dominic Reyes literally beat him, I don't care what anyone says. But besides that, his fighting style isn't too boring. He stands tall and has quite a heavy emphasis on his kicks, elbows and knees. Very similar to a Muay Thai style. His boxing is also pretty trash because he has pillow hands. And he also has very good grappling, which was made obvious in his last fight, but if you look through his career, he does have a decent amount of submissions. The standing guillotine he got against Lyoto Machida is probably the coolest submission I've ever seen. And I also want to add that he does throw a decent amount of flashy techniques like spinning elbows, which also makes his fighting style pretty entertaining. And this is where it gets a little complicated and I might piss a lot of people off. But at number 5 I have Islam Makhachev, and Islam Makhachev is a very skilled and entertaining fighter. I think he's probably one of the most well-rounded champions in the UFC. The guy is elite wrestling of course, but even though he's Dagestani, he also has very good striking. One of, if not the most skilled striker in the division, and he also has some really good performances like his fight against Dustin and the first and second fight with Volk. He also has a pretty good amount of finishes on his record. The only critique I can give Makhachev is that sometimes he's just so dominant that the fight becomes boring, like in his fight against Bobby Green or Dan Hooker. So I guess it's not really his fault. But at number 4 I have the African-born, African-raised champion himself, DDP. And at first I thought DDP's style was goofy, and I'll still stand by that, but you can't deny how entertaining it is. The guy's a brawler and a very good one at that. Now in terms of technique, he's definitely not the best, but he's very powerful, has crazy good durability, and always pushes forward, which makes his style very entertaining to watch. And I've said this before, but I think that his lack of technique is actually what makes his striking effective, because his opponents have a hard time making reads on a guy who's so unorthodox. Which shows because he literally beat the 3 best strikers in middleweight, Strickland, Whitaker and Adesanya. Although the Strickland fight could have gone to Strickland, but regardless, those fights were very exciting. Now at number 3 I have Ilia Topuria, and Topuria has a very boxing heavy style, which I personally like a lot. And he's obviously gonna have very good boxing, but he also has pretty underrated grappling, which his record shows because he has a lot of submissions. I think he actually started out with Greco-Roman wrestling or something like that. I might be wrong, but regardless, what makes his style so exciting is of course his striking. He's a pressure boxer who for the most part moves forward, but unlike DDP, he's very calculated and has very nice defense. The guy's also really good at making reads, and that's the reason for why he has such nice counters. He also has insane power. He pretty much always chins his opponents if he catches them clean. And if you also look at his fight, the Mitchell fight was very good, the Emmett fight was very good, and the Volk fight was also very good. And he also gets bonus points for beating that Soy-Jitsu practitioner, Ryan Hall, who Joe Rogan was glazing so hard in that fight. Now at number 2 I actually have Alex Pereira, which might surprise a lot of people because you guys who watch me know I'm a big Pereira fan. But Pereira should definitely be near the top of this list. His striking is next level. Very technical but also very unorthodox. The guy also has crazy power, one of the most powerful punchers in the history of the sport, and his record shows that he has 9 knockouts and 11 fights in MMA. The most exciting part about Pereira's fighting style is how you never know when the fight is gonna end. The fight can end instantly once he lands his left hook, which is one of the scariest punches I've ever seen. He literally shins everyone he touches with it. Pereira is also all offense, the guy is pretty hittable. He doesn't really move his head that much, but he has a stone chin which makes up for that weakness. I also really like how calculated he is and how he sets up his most powerful techniques. The Strickland fight is the best example of this. He conditioned Strickland to overparry his jab and then came around Strickland's guard with a left hook, which is some very high level stuff. His fights are also really exciting, like the first Adesanya fight where he was on his way to losing but came back in the final round and knocked him out. And even in the second Adesanya fight where he was putting a beating on Adesanya until Adesanya knocked him out. He also had a very cool main character moment against Jamal Hill where Hill hit his cup and when the ref was gonna step in, Pereira just put out his hand and stopped him and then immediately went out and knocked out Hill with a left hook. His 3 fights were also very good where he knocked him out with a left hook in the first fight and knocked him out with a head kick in their second fight. Anyways, I have nothing more to say, so let's move on to number 1 of this list, and that is Sean O'Malley. And I think most people are gonna agree with me here because O'Malley is literally dribbling on his opponents. In my opinion, he's the most complete striker in the UFC. The guy can kick, he can punch, he has great defense, he's fast, he's powerful, and moves really well. He also throws a lot of flashy techniques in his fights, like spinning back kicks and stuff like that. And his creativity on the feet is unmatched, and he also has some crazy highlights. The Aljo knockout is one of the coolest knockouts I've ever seen, literally face planted him, and we can also talk about the Vera fight where he conducted surgery on Vera's face. He literally looked like a completely different person in that fight. And I really hope he beats Merab if they're even gonna fight, because Merab's style is literally the opposite of exciting. If Merab wins, he's gonna stink up the best division in the UFC, and it's up to you, O'Malley, to faceplant him too. Anyways, if you're interested in more of these type of videos, check out my video where I ranked all the current champions based on striking. But that said, thanks for watching, leave a like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments if you agree with my list, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.